Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to COASTER-net Update. We've got some breaking news tonight out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and South Carolina, half and half, where Carowinds is finally entering into the 2018 teaser campaign season.
Officially entering,
and we now have some teasers for their 2019 attraction. Now, Danny, this is quite interesting here, that we've had Carowinds themselves tweeted out 2 images of posters that have been posted on a green wood fence that is out by the construction area. You know, we've talked about this area quite a bit over the last few months where they've been clearing land. You know, we've speculated as to whether or not this would be, you know, for a new roller coaster, maybe called Copperhead Strike, because we've seen that name copyrighted as of recent by Cedar Fair. But now we have 2 posters, and these 2 posters are very, very interesting. So I'm going to read you both of them, Danny.
There's a lot of information of them, and they say a lot, and they tell us nothing.
They tell us nothing. So I find it interesting what they're doing here. So the first one I'm going to show you is it's We Build Barns, and you see a big barn there with a
hashtag what's in the barn.
What's in the barn? It says, we strive to create, construct, and build quality products from the finest cedar trees in the entire country. For years, the Miami River Lumber Company, which you may remember from Mystic Timbers up at Kings Island, has provided service, support, and excellence in the lumber and hardware field within the Queen City. New for this year, we are excited to extend our helping hand to our friends in the Carolinas. If you are in the market for custom furniture, wooden barns, sheds, or fences, then look no further. We cut it down, trim it up, and set it up to your specifications. And then
it's going to have a trim break, Andy. They said it right there. They said the word trim.
So I think the most interesting part of this poster is actually the bottom, where there's a quote that says, our lumber is obtained by means of vengeance.
Ooh.
Notice we are...
What vengeance?
Well, I don't know. There is a notice at the bottom, though. It says, we are temporarily sold out of southern yellow pine, which you talk about a lot on this show, until our next shipment arrives next season. So, let's break it down, Danny. Break it down for us. What's going on?
That means no GCI until the following year.
Well,
oh, wait. Vengeance, they're going to do the reverse Iron Horse treatment to Fury 325. It is going to become the world's tallest, fastest wood coaster. They're going to put topper track on Fury 325, very clearly.
Very clearly, that's what's going to happen. Actually, you made a very good point when you did some research on Copperheads. Now, before we continue with all this nonsense, and that's exactly what this is at this point.
Yeah, because we know nothing.
We know nothing because Carowinds has a history of sending you down the wrong path. Anyone who was around for the Fury 325 campaign clearly remembers Roman Colosseums being put up all over the park with references to the Colosseum and actual pictures of the Colosseum. Moving forward to
even days before the announcement, they had Roman-themed videos playing in their queues.
Exactly. And the day of the announcement, they had a T-shirt printed that said Centurion with a fake logo on it. Yes. So Carowinds in the past, you had to have taken that fact of, hey, they're doing Colosseums, and take it 2 steps further and say, hey, there's a Colosseum in Charlotte, where one NBA basketball team plays called the Charlotte Hornets, and all of a sudden we get the Fury theme out of it. That's a B theme. So you have to take it 2 steps further. So the question we have to ask first, is this what they're doing? Because if you look at the picture on there, it kind of looks like a barn with 2 doors that are open, that a lot of people have said that this is going to be a Mack launch coaster, and it looks like something where you could have a roller coaster train shoot out of this barn quite easily, kind of like Thunderbird.
Yeah, that's actually a real good comparison there, because Thunderbird does that exact thing. It actually shoots out of a barn. And oddly enough, I always said I could envision a Copperhead Strike named attraction having a color scheme very similar to that of Thunderbird with the orange track and the brown supports of some sort. So, maybe there's something to that. I think that's certainly possible. We talk about the whole Fury Centurion thing, but if you go back 5 years before that, there were a lot of people for a long time. We thought they were bringing back the White Lightning name for Intimidator. So Cedar Fair Carowinds have had a long history of sending us down the wrong path when it comes to these new attractions from year to year. So knowing that, we have to take everything they give us with a grain of salt, number one. And number two, we also have to look at what is factually there. And we made a big deal last year during the teaser campaign season and the announcement season and all that we were very convinced that all the parks were kind of playing along with one another. And they were all working together because whether they would admit to it or not, if we ever asked them, there were little references, and it's very hard to argue against this, mind you.
Yeah.
There were references to other parks within their teaser campaigns. And Andy, whether or not they meant to do that last year, they are most certainly meaning to do it this year because they're referencing Steel Vengeance, they're referencing Mystic Timbers. You could maybe argue that they're referencing Twisted Timbers a little bit here. So already we've got references to 2 or 3 other recent roller coasters in the chain, and they're not. We've seen reference to a GCI, seen reference to at least one RMC, and we're going to talk about some other references that are in this the second image here, and then we'll get into the 2 different things: the suggestions from these teaser images, and then also what is factually on site. So let's go through the other image, and then we'll talk.
So the other image then. I'll pull it up here. So this is, it says, pending approval by the Greater Carolina Agricultural Department, the Bird Farm expansion. Granny's boys are at it again. There's sweet corn to be filling these acres and filling your bellies come 2019. So they're talking about sweet corn here. At the bottom of this one, it says the Higginbottom Lending and Trust, the Big Mox Demolition and Building, the Chamberlain Brothers Excavation Company, and the Miami River Lumber Company. So once again, we see references to other rides.
Yeah. The Miami River Lumber Company is most definitely the most obvious one because that's what's plastered all over Mystic Timbers. Chamberlain Brothers Excavation, that's Blackjack's last name from the Steel Vengeance campaign. And the other one that sticks out to me is Big Mox Demolition because, as many people know, we like to say Mack rides here because we're, Americans over here. But the way that it's pronounced over there is Mock rides because, German accent. So it's Mock rides. What is it? Higginbotham?
Yeah, Higginbotham.
Lending and Trust. Does that ring a bell for you?
To me, it does not. Well, let's type it up and see what happens.
Well, so we're doing live on the spot research here.
Yeah, nothing ties directly for me, and nothing jumps to my mind from things that I've heard in the past. I'm sure
if something does.
If something does. Now, Danny, immediately when I look at both these posters, if I know nothing else, if I just take these 2 posters, my initial reaction would be one of 2 things. They're either building a GCI, which was the initial rumor coming out of Carowinds many months ago that we talked about here, or they are going to RMC Hurler. That's just from these posters. Now we know all the side stuff with the launch Mack coaster. Yeah. So Danny, what should I believe here? What are you leaning towards?
Well, we've had a history on this show of saying the first thing to come out is usually the right answer.
But the first thing to come out was GCI.
The first thing to come out was GCI. The more recent thing to come out was Mac Launch Coaster. So if we were to follow our normal logic here, we would be saying GCI. However, we also have to consider what we've physically seen on site. And we talked about this with Valraven, and how we talked about this with Valraven, right? And we hadn't actually seen anything physical that led us to believe that that was going to be the name up until a certain point. So we've seen footers, rebar, that kind of stuff, which they look like steel coaster rebar, but who knows. We've also seen a box with the Mac Rides logo stamped on the side, and we've also seen a layout of some sort be leaked, shared. I don't know what the correct terms are there, because it bounced around Screamscape for a while. I didn't see a source as to where that layout ever came from, so I don't know where it came from. I don't know, I don't know what the story is behind the layout. But Andy, you have an interesting theory about these things.
Well, let's first label this theory under the Lake Erie monster theory. So
the blue sky, wild, out there, probably not actually correct theory.
What if now I'm going to start with a few suppositions. I'm going to start with a few facts. Number one, we know Carowinds loves to throw people off the scent and will go to great lengths to do so. For instance, designing a logo and having it printed on a t-shirt to throw people off.
And a website.
That was pretty next level shit there. Like, I'll be honest with you, like nobody saw that one coming. So number two, we know this. Number two, we know that there is a Mac Rides box on site. We also know that there is a Mac Rides roller coaster on site as well called Ricochet. So what if Carowinds is taking this to next level stuff? What if Carowinds said, let's really screw with the enthusiasts this year and let's throw a Mac Rides box in plain view of everything, that it wasn't like a big mystery, like people looking around and snooping around. It was pretty obvious. The box also says Mac Rides, spare parts for something, for column maybe.
It looks like spare parts for column.
I'm just thinking to myself, the first thing you ship to a park for a new ride is the spare parts? I don't know. Maybe that's not the first thing I ship to a ride. Maybe that's just a box they had in a storage closet somewhere from when they were building. People know that theme parks are notorious for keeping old shit around. So why not just throw it out into the parking lot to really throw people off?
I zoomed in on the box. It does say spare parts for column.
So then let's take it a step further. If I'm really screwing with people, who's the main website that's going to disseminate my information for me? Why wouldn't I send an anonymous leak to maybe one of the biggest rumor websites out there and have him do my dirty work and have him be the mark? He'll be the mark. Lance will be the mark, and this will get out, and everyone will think it's a Mac launch coaster, but indeed it's a GCI or maybe the RMCing of Hurler. I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't believe it, Danny. I do not believe it.
I would almost be willing to jump on that theory if we didn't have the rebar columns that very much look like steel support columns.
How much is rebar? If you're
no, but these are already like preset and they're already like pre-painted, like this tan color that we said would be a good fit for this type of thing. I mean, what are you doing with a bunch of those if you're not building a steel coaster?
Maybe it's, I'll tell you what, maybe it's, I saw a lot of tan, B&M looking supports in the Steel Vengeance Q line. Who knows? Maybe it's to put up, shade for the new Q line. I don't know, Danny. It could be a lot of things.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. There's an awful lot of them out there, though. So I don't know. If that's what it is, then big credit to Carowinds, because again, we talked about how they're going above and beyond they would certainly have been doing that again.
Now,
Sure.
I have conspiracy theory number 2, which I think might be a little bit more on point. I think this one might be on point, Danny. What if we said at the end of last year, with the great teaser campaigns that we had with Twisted Timbers and Steel Vengeance and Railblazer, we said, how do they top this? How do they top this? And, of course, a good PR person will accept that challenge and say, this is how I top it. I'm going to do a multi-year teaser campaign.
Yep. And this one I can buy into. This one I can get behind.
And maybe we're not only seeing teasers for this year, but also for future years. I think the key line there was that no Southern Yellow Pine would be available for this year, but next season it will be. So maybe they're also teasing at the same time, either, once again, a hurler conversion to an RMC or a brand new GCI coaster that, or maybe both. How do I know? So maybe this is actually a multi-year teaser.
Well, this is the Tony Clark 5-year plan thing here that we might be getting. Maybe those little things at the bottom there, maybe the Higginbotham lending and trust thing, we have no idea what that is yet. Maybe we'll know in 5 years. Maybe those things at the bottom there are, funding and construction partners, expansion, Miami River Lumber Company. Maybe there's a GCI in the 5-year plan. Chamberlain Brothers Excavation. Maybe there's an RMC of Hurler in the plans. Big mock demolition and building. Maybe, that's what this year is here, the Mack Rides coaster. And Higginbotham, I don't know. I don't know what that could be, but maybe this is the Tony Clark 5-year plan Carowinds edition. It's just on a teaser sign.
Just on a sign. You just put it up there. Now, Danny, you had one more thing to add here on how maybe the barn theme connects to the Copperhead theme.
It's the barn theme could tie in because I did a little bit of research on Copperheads. Copperheads they're found in a wide variety of locations and habitats, and geographically, they are found in a lot of different places. But they do like places where there's both open area and cover, and they can be found in buildings such as barns or sheds, or around underneath those types of areas. So I think it's certainly possible that there might be a little bit of a hint there, just a little bit. I don't think there's a whole lot there. I went to see if, there was, maybe Copperheads really like corn. I don't know. I was looking for something like that jumped off the page. Didn't really find anything. A few small things here, but not enough for me to say, yeah, that's it.
Well, the other thing is they do talk about corn a lot, and Copperheads, you think of a snake skin and you think of that bumpy surface.
The scales, okay, yeah.
Kind of look like corn, so maybe that's something to do here. I don't know. I think when we get down to it, though, a Mack launch coaster coming out of a barn that's a lot like Thunderbird would be pretty cool, especially if you had some sort of pre-show in there, much like the shed at Mystic Timbers. Maybe that's
you just do it in reverse. You do it at the start of the ride. I mean, that was one of my comments was, the shed would have been really cool at the beginning of the ride because you do this and then you go ride this good roller coaster.
Yeah.
So maybe they're doing that.
So I think it's really early to tell here. There are some other signs up, like I said, we have the fencing. There's a few other signs, about talking about, don't look in here and that kind of thing. I don't, about some dogs. Nothing really jumps out at me there for any other extra information. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad to see that Carowinds is posting it on social media. They obviously want us to talk about it, and thus we are. We'll see how in depth we have to go this year. How many steps removed we have to take to get to the answer, to get to the bottom of this. But we've got a good start here, so it's interesting that they're giving us a lot to talk about. But like you said at the beginning of the show, we don't know how much substance we have.
They're saying it's like I hear you, but I'm not listening. They're saying a lot. They're not telling us anything.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's where we're at this point. So as always, stay tuned. I'm sure we will get a lot more over the next 2 months from Carowinds, because we would assume that the announcement once again will be in August sometime, probably on National Roller Coaster Day again, which that was a pretty cool way to do it. So hopefully we'll get that again this year. So as always, I'm of course Andy Robarchek from Chicago, Illinois.
And Danny Miller visiting home this weekend from Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Oh, Dorney. Here we go. Right on, Ride Warriors.
See you guys.
Maybe Dorney's getting something next year.
Oh, boy. There we go.